This is Inside Town Hall, a behind-the-scenes look at city government and the issues affecting you and your family.
Thank you for joining us for Inside Town Hall. I'm your host, Madeline Shields. Coming up on this program, we learn about the year-end budget of 2018, and we're going to hear all about what's going on at the Washington Pavilion. We'll be back in just a moment.
Hi, I'm Dr. Lindsay Hansen at Falls Community Health. With the recent measles outbreak here in South Dakota, I wanted to take a moment to remind you that measles is a preventable disease. The virus is highly contagious, but vaccination works very well, up to 97% effective against measles. 3 out of 10 people with measles develop complications from it, which can be severe. If you are unsure if you've been vaccinated, don't hesitate to call your doctor with questions.
Sioux Falls City Councilors have a lot to keep up with in this growing city of Sioux Falls. And joining me to discuss all of the things that are going on is City Councilor Pat Starr. Thanks for joining us for Inside Town Hall.
Thank you.
Let's get first to the budget and the 2018 year in review.
You know what? The city of Sioux Falls had a really great 2018. There were a lot of good things that happened. Last spring went longer than we expected with snow removal, and we had some to supplement that part of the budget. But overall, we had a capital surplus of almost $5 million, or $4.5 million, I'll get the numbers right, and then a surplus in the regular budget of almost $5 million. I think one of the things that we'll see some of that money, most of it went into savings, but I think there are a couple of things we'll see yet this spring, some really great improvements to our community that we'll be taking a look at the capital money, especially with a supplement to the 2019 budget that I think people are going to be really excited about. And so try to tease it as much as I can without spilling the beans of kind of where we're headed in the next 2 weeks.
Well, that's why I wanted to know. It's like, it's like a movie. We got to know what the plot is coming up.
It's one of those that I think we've been sworn to secrecy, that there's an event that'll come part of a building, and it'll involve the core of our city, and I think we'll be really excited. It'll be something that the citizens have been waiting for, and as much as I can keep a secret between the two of us, probably not today by the time we're done. So, but by the time this airs, I think it'll be it'll be an awesome project for our community.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about all of the different things that you have to look at when you're planning the budget, and as you look back over the last year, all of the things that you've accomplished.
Absolutely. One of the things that I think I watch probably a little closer is I try to, you want to watch the expenses, obviously, and look at the contracts and the things that we're doing, the road projects, the sewer projects, the combination of things. But I really spend a lot of time watching the revenue side of the budget. I want to make sure that we're forecasting what we forecast actually is collected, whether it's sales tax, property taxes, the other fees that we do, and what we bring in, and then balancing that of how we spend it. Because for me, budgets start with what you expect in revenue. And so as part of taking a look at the revenue that's coming in, you really have to go to the economic conditions of our city, our state, and our region. And we're still seeing some very positive signs. We've saw some nice growth in the sales tax, but I think there's some things on the horizon that we need to at least be a little bit concerned on. When our finance director was in this week and briefed the council and gave us the year-end numbers, it's kind of we're starting to see some farm economy things that are really starting to affect what's going to happen. A lot of communities, whether it's Minneapolis, St. Paul, go south to Omaha, you're seeing a lot of cities and states kind of pulling back a little bit, that we're kind of at the end of an economic cycle of positive. And what's concerning to me is that you're going to have that ag economy that really pulled us through the last one. Sioux Falls especially, and our state, are really struggling. You're starting to see a number of farm bankruptcies rise. You're starting to see, when you talk to the counties, property taxes are being paid slower and slower by the ag community, as well as some other places. So I think we're kind of on that tipping point. So when we did the 2020 budget, or 2019 budget, we tried to be a lot more conservative. But again, we see some really great things. Try not to be as pessimistic, but we saw some great indicators. Our sales tax is in that increasing by about 4.5% when you look at the 12-month rolling average. So there's some good things. You see building permits at another record level. I think we're in 2019 going to see some huge increases in building as well. So you see some large projects, the school districts investing in the community. You're going to see some city investment in things, whether it's even just the purchase of land for a new fire, police training facility, and making sure that we're also building that type of facility to train the region's firefighters and law enforcement. So just some really great things that are happening, but we have to be cautious, but we still have to build on what we're doing and the growth that we're seeing in our community.
I just want to touch for a few of our viewers who don't maybe know, they live in the city, they've lived in the city maybe all of their life. Explain to them a little bit how that farm economy really affects the city of Sioux Falls, because a lot of times we think that farmers, they live maybe 2, 3, 4 hours from Sioux Falls, that they're buying their things locally, but that's not always the case, that they are coming to Sioux Falls.
Absolutely. Well, they come for a number of reasons to our community and really support a lot of our activities. The professional bull riders are going to be in town shortly, and that's when I see a lot more of it. But on a weekly and monthly basis, whether they're delivering livestock to Smithfield and buying diesel fuel or gas and picking up supplies and groceries, our budget is mainly based on sales tax revenue. And as your income dramatically drops, what we've seen in real farm income, we were hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's dropped, or it was in the millions for farm income, 3.5 million, and it's dropped down to almost 500,000 in farm income. I mean, that's a huge difference that they're not going to have to spend for entertainment venues when they come to Sioux Falls, just buying necessities and groceries, buying vehicles, whether it's trucks and cars, and the service that goes with that. It impacts our community as ag-based much, much more than most people who live in Sioux Falls proper realize.
And I think that's a good reminder to everyone that the number one industry in South Dakota is agriculture, and it affects every city and every town.
Absolutely. And like I said, we welcome our rural friends to town to partake in the activities, to buy groceries, to do the things that are part of their community. Their kids come to school here in our community with 2 universities and our tech school. So, I mean, it really tightens. When the farm economy goes bad, it affects the city of Sioux Falls greatly.
Okay. What else do we have to talk about? I know you had mentioned some flex fuels. Let's
Absolutely. As long as we're
that.
talking ag and corn, we might as well continue on that as well. One of the things that we did, our fiscal committee of the city council held a brief hearing where we brought some folks in from POET, and then we brought our public works department in to talk about, what type of fuels are we using as a community? And our city has done a really great job. We have one of our 4 fueling facilities has an E85 or ethanol 85% fueling location. So our flex fuel vehicles that we have are able to use 85% ethanol. All of our fuel is E10 or 10% ethanol at all 4 of our fueling facilities. In fact, one of the things that I learned at this hearing was that all of our small engines that we use, lawnmowers, snow blowers, any of those small engines, we're also using 10% ethanol in all of those vehicles. Or in those engines and that type of equipment that we're using across the city. And then in our 2019 budget, because it always goes back to the budget, if you're going to be a financial nerd like I am, we are redoing a fueling station at one of our main facilities to be able to expand to E15. So we'll be able to use a higher grade of ethanol. And one of the things that we talked about in this hearing before the council is, and the state's talking a lot about it, the governor said that it's safe to use 30%. So going to an E30 blend. So right now, we're convinced as a city that E15 is the way to go. We're adding the extra equipment. We're renewing some fueling stations. So we'll be, instead of using E10, we'll go all the way to E15. And then we're in the process of could we go to an E30 blend? And without getting too technical into it, E30 is kind of somewhere between 30 and 40% is where the real efficiency is, that combination of a fossil fuel with a renewable fuel. That if you get much higher than that, you lose the economy, the savings kind of drop off. 85% makes sense, but it's kind of in that 30 to 40% blend is where the best use, the most savings, and the opportunity to provide that economic impact to our ag community.
So you talk a little bit about being a numbers nerd, but you have to take that hat off and you have to take questions from your constituents and for, representing everyone in Sioux Falls. What are some of the things you're hearing from the citizens here in Sioux Falls?
Absolutely. One of the things that we do is we do a survey, the citizen survey that we go through, and we'll get the response to that back in April. But one of the things that I hear when I go to church or coffee or picking up groceries or dropping off kids is street conditions. I think that, we joke about it some of the times, but we live in a climate that is really difficult to keep roads without potholes. It's difficult this time of year to fix them. It's difficult to, when it rains and it's slush in January and things thaw and then freeze and the water goes inside of it, it's difficult to stay ahead of it. But I think there are some things that I think the citizens have become really concerned. I know when we talk with Public Works, one of the things they always say is that we should move the election cycle from April when they're just getting those first crews out where they can get the hot mix and really do a good job. Because anything we do this time of the year is temporary, so that you don't lose a wheel, you don't feel like you're, on safari bouncing through the streets. But we have crews out on the streets. I've seen them. I've drove through some of the stuff on my car by the time we're done. But that's really the number one thing that people want to talk about of a necessity of government is that getting the streets fixed.
I'm guilty because I want the streets plowed like now. But then as you see the streets, the snow movers, and they're piling it up in the middle. So you're taking side roads to avoid them, and you're trying not to get too close to the plow. So just give everybody a break. They're doing the best they can.
Well, and you know what? We joke about it, and we joke about potholes, and at least I do with some of my friends, and that is, but we've got a street crew and a street department, not only our city employees, but we have a lot of vendors, contractors that we work with to do that. And it's amazing how you can have a major snow event and within hours we're out on the street because we're not staying home. We're South Dakotans. We got to either get to work or we got to get to the mall, or more likely than not, we got to get to a restaurant is usually what we're doing. So we pay sales tax. Gets me back to the numbers nerd side of things by the time we're done. But they've done an incredible job. But they're tired. We've gone a number of weekends where, we're on 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week. We barely get it cleaned up so people can go back to work, and then we're hauling it off and doing those things. So those crews are tired, and we'll joke about the potholes, but we want to thank them as well for being great employees and great contractors to open up the city as fast as they can.
Okay, well, at this time, we're going to take a break. We are visiting with City Councilor Pat Starr. We'll be back in just a moment.
My hero is my neighbor because she rakes the lawn for me when I can't.
She's always there whenever anyone needs a helping hand.
My teacher is my hero because she always makes time for everyone.
Welcome back to Inside Town Hall. In downtown Sioux Falls stands a pillar rich with history, arts, and entertainment. And here to give us an update on the Washington Pavilion is City Councilor Pat Starr and his guest, Darren Smith with the Washington Pavilion. You're the CEO and the president. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on at the pavilion.
Well, I wanted to invite Mr. Smith today just because the pavilion is such a jewel for our community. I think you're exactly right. And just kind of an update of what's going on, because our family loves the pavilion. We spend a lot of time there. We were there this weekend again, and there's construction going on. There's some things. Maybe let's start with that. That might be the best way to.
Well, there's a lot of things. We've really focused. I've been there 2.5 years now in this position, and we've really had a focus on the facility. Of course, I have a history with the city. Myself, going back a few years with City Council and more recently on the administration side, and I was the liaison to the pavilion during that time, and I can tell you that as a city asset, city-owned facility, the city, I think, felt like that the building really is a crown jewel and needs to look that way and reflect that on a daily basis. So for me, that was a top priority coming over for obvious reasons, but also because I had heard that at the city and experienced that. So there's so many things that we have done in the building in the last couple of years. It now looks like a first-class facility on a regular basis. We're very proud of that. There are some pieces, still some finishing pieces. We need to get the stairwells tiled, hard tiled. Right now, 2 of the 3 stairwell levels still have the original carpet from 1999, and it is showing. The carpet throughout the rest of the building has actually been replaced. Several thousand square feet of carpet has been replaced. But the stairwells now, we're going to come back and get that done this year. And so people will notice that. We've just really worked hard through the building with the city, with some good corporate sponsors in the community to make some of those physical improvements and get things looking the way that they should. So we're happy right now.
That's awesome. My kids were really excited about the grossology exhibit that we saw as part of that. So with body fluids and smells and different things as they spent some time there. But talk about a little bit about the partnerships that you brought over the last couple of years. That's what's really exciting. I saw SDSU has some. I'll let you do it rather than me. By the time we were really impressed.
It's good. Well, look, one of the things that I've lived in Sioux Falls about 20 years now, and Sioux Falls really is unique compared to a lot of cities across the country in terms of corporate support. And others that I've talked to in this industry now that I'm in, it's the performing arts world, it's the museum world, education in the museum and so forth. When I share with them what our fundraising numbers are with individual giving as well as corporate giving, the one that always gets their attention is the corporate giving and the level of corporate support. They're blown away by that, even in much larger cities. So we're very blessed that way. Again, I was part of some of that with the new event center and saw how that could really help if they're structured the right way, and not only to help make physical improvements, but to support the ongoing programming of what we're doing there. And so we've added a number of really strong corporate partners, the Sanfords, the Averas, the First Premier Banks. I could go on and on. It's a lot of the names you would expect to hear, but they are some of our very best sponsors, and we're adding more. You're going to see a lot more on the Science Center side than you've really seen for some time. We're doing some new things there. Again, not only with Sanford and Avera, but Raven Industries, Poet, the South Dakota Corn Growers Association. I'm hopeful we'll do something with the Department of Tourism at the state level. So there's some things there that we're doing, the local CVB and so forth, that I think are really exciting and haven't been involved historically with what we're doing, but it's a great fit and it's good for us too.
For people who may be new to our community and aren't really sure what the Washington Pavilion is all about, can you go through the different attractions and different levels and what is there? And I think there's something there for everyone.
There is, and that's a huge advantage we have. And again, I can tell you, talking to others in the industry across the country, they're really envious of us because most places that have a portion of what we have truly only have a portion. A lot of places across the country are standalone performing arts venues, standalone children's museums or science centers, standalone visual art centers or art museums. We combine all of that in a way that I can assure you is very unique. There really is no other place in the United States quite like the Washington Pavilion that combines all these things. And I think those who have a history with the pavilion would tell you at times that it has been a blessing and a curse. But we are really figuring it out now and making it work for us. So we do have a major performing arts component. We have a 1,881 seat hall. We have a 300 seat theater. We have a visual arts center with 8 galleries. We have a children's science center. We have a cafe. We have bars located throughout the building to support all the events we have. One of the common misconceptions is that we only have Broadway productions. And the reality is, I'd say half or less of what we're doing is Broadway. It's certainly significant, and it's who we are, but at least half or more of our events in those, the small theater and the big hall, are concerts. John Mellencamp, Willie Nelson. We have a wide variety of concerts where you might have 1,000 people attend, you might have a sold-out show with close to 2,000 and everything in between. So sees a lot of different people, a lot of diversity in our audiences. We're close to 500,000 people a year that visit the pavilion for one reason or another. So it's really, it's going great right now.
One of the things that I think you talked about, the corporate sponsor side of it, but there's the nonprofit side as well. My daughter is in a Dapper performance that they're preparing for the first week of May, I believe, is when they'll go on stage. But the children's programming that goes with it. But I believe the South Dakota Symphony is housed at in the Washington Pavilion, Jazz and Blues Society. I'm doing your job again by the time we're done. But
you're helping me remember. It's true.
So DAPA, the Jazz and Blues, I mean, and so the nonprofit support and the Arts Council.
Sioux Falls Concert Association is another one. Jazz and Blues Symphony, we are the home facility for them, and many of them, if they have staff, and most of them do, they office at the pavilion. So they really are more like tenants. A lot of people think we own the symphony or we own Jazz and Blues or Concert Association. We don't. They're their own separate nonprofit organizations, but we work very closely with them. It's good for us that we are their home for their entertainment and also their offices. It brings other people into the building that maybe wouldn't come otherwise. We feel that's good for us. The Children's Theater program really is one we should touch on, and it's part of that larger performing arts that I mentioned earlier, but we should call out the DAPA Children's Theater program in particular, because that, like a lot of things at the pavilion in the last year or two, is really exploding. The last 2 times we've had auditions for productions, each time has been an all-time record for number of kids auditioning, so that's good to see. On the higher level with the performing arts, the number of annual subscribers we have has never been higher. We had less than 1,000 annual subscribers to our Broadway shows in 2010, and we now have over 3,000. I mean, we've tripled that number in 8 or 9 seasons. That's pretty remarkable. Our museums, as of 2016, we had 5 consecutive years of declining attendance in the Science Center. We needed to reinvest dollars and time and effort, and we've done that. We had our first increase in 5 years in 2017, and in 2018 we had the second highest level of attendance in the history of the pavilion, only trailing the very first year it opened, and we will beat that number this year. We know that. We're already on track. That's going to happen. It'll be an all-time record. So whether you're talking about performing arts, the museum stuff, children's theater, all those areas are just doing really, really well.
You talked about corporate sponsors, but let's not forget the individuals who, the $50 or $100 donations. Talk a little bit about how important those small donations are for you.
We actually feel they are most important, and that is an area of priority for us. It has been and is going to continue to be. It'll really never not be a priority. What I've learned from others in the industry is that the corporate giving can be fleeting. As businesses come and go, they're bought out by someplace larger in the world because we're part of this global economy now. There's mergers and acquisitions, there's recessions. Your corporate giving can ebb and flow. But those folks who give $50 or $100 and really love what we do, they have a passion for it, even in the deepest of recessions, a high percentage of them will never go away from us. They will continue to give. That really has to be our foundation. We have several thousand individual donors. We're strong there, but it needs to be our strongest area. And so it'll always be a focus.
And let's talk about those folks who can't afford $50 or $100, or maybe they can't even afford the price to come into the Kirby Science Center.
Yes.
Tell us, how do you cater to people who can't afford to pay an entry fee? Yeah,
thank you. I definitely want to touch on that and talk about that and stress that really. We are a nonprofit, and we are managing a city-owned facility, and we are the facility is supported by the entertainment tax, and so we're conscious of that. we have something called Free First Friday. So the first Friday of every month, we open the doors at non-traditional times from 5 to 8 p.m. after work hours, after school hours. Anybody can come in and go through the museums and other areas in the pavilion. We will average, about 1,000 people per Friday when we do that. So that gives a chance for really anyone to come in up to 12 times a year. We have scholarships for whether it's our preschool program. We haven't even touched on education. We have a great education program. We have a preschool program. We have scholarships that we make available for kids, so nobody is turned away because of income. Sometimes we have space constraints because we typically sell our stuff out. But we have a scholarship program for that. We use some of our own dollars. We have very generous donors that they want to give specifically for that purpose. Same thing with DAPA, the Children's Theater Program. We have scholarships available, so nobody gets turned away that wants to participate.
And then, do you take volunteers? Do you need volunteers, and how would someone get a hold of them to do that?
Oh, yes. We actually have over 300 volunteers. That surprises a lot of people. It certainly surprised me when I started 2.5 years ago. I would liken our volunteer program to be similar to what I've seen at the hospitals. They really use volunteers at a high level, and especially those who are retired. But still want to be active. They still want to be engaged in the community. We have a lot of those folks, and it's a 6-figure savings for us operationally with our volunteers. Twice a year we have big dinners on the stage at the Mary W. Somervold Hall just for those volunteers to say thank you. That's how important they are. That's how much money they save us. If you come to a Broadway show, we'll have upwards of 20 ushers in uniform scattered throughout the building helping people, and I would say 80 to 90% of them are actually volunteers.
And they get to see the show for free.
Yes, absolutely.
That's probably the biggest selling point, is that they get to be part of it. The other thing is I think there's a membership special going on right now.
Yep. Yes. So we have 20%. Well, we'll have a variety of specials. Sometimes we'll run this buy one get one free. A lot of times we'll do a 20% off, and we're going to look at doing some different things too going forward. We also have some things we're looking at coming up here with membership that I think are going to be, we want to get even more creative with how we provide access to different segments of the community that maybe we haven't been able to as much in the past. Just one quickly I would touch on is Salmon's Financial is, again, one of those good corporate sponsors. They became a new sponsor last year. They essentially purchased 100 family memberships, and now we've gone to multiple Title I schools in town. So those are the schools with the highest low-income percentages, free and reduced meal count numbers. And we're working with the principals. So the principal at each school gets to pick, say, 10 kids that they reward with a free membership to the pavilion for their family for a year, which has really been a lot of fun. And they're rewarding them through things like perfect attendance or highest test score, things like that, where they're giving the kids an incentive to do the right things in school. And then the reward is a membership at the pavilion. So that's been a lot of fun too.
Okay, well, we have a lot to talk about, but unfortunately we are out of time. And if you'd like to find out more about what's going on at the Washington Pavilion, you can go to washingtonpavilion.org. And if you want to know what's going on in the city of Sioux Falls, check out siouxfalls.org. Thanks for joining us, both of you.
Thank you.
And thanks for watching.